box. So, first thing I'm going to do is hopefully I'm live, and if you can see me, then you know I'm live. I'll find out later. But I just wanted to share a story. Take up a little of our time here just to prove a point that this works. You know, in my retirement, one of the things I did, and since I'm retired, but I thought, well, earn a little extra money. Go ahead and Uber. Go ahead and drive for the other competitor also. So I began driving. As a result, I had 4,000 rides. Can you imagine that? One of the things I noticed by chance is as I was driving, one time I mentioned, and by the way, I'm going to go ahead and have an anniversary. I said, you are? I said, how in the world do you do that? You tell us, because nobody does. They were enjoying themselves, and so pretty soon the man thinking, well, I can do what I want to do when I want to do it and don't have to answer to anybody. Well, after a while, like anything, life goes on. He said, well, I need some tools. And he said, there aren't very many tools up here on Mars, so I'm afraid we're going to have to go back to Earth. Somebody else said, let me ride with you. Well, why? Well, I need some tools to fix my new spaceship. Some parts. So he said, okay, come. Well, they didn't know, but about that time, some of the women from Venus decided we need to do some shopping. We need to look pretty. And we're going to go back to Earth to buy some new clothes. In trying to make a relationship work that they could not make work. And I said, here's the problem. They said, well, what's the problem? and you're two different people from two different families. You may come from a messy family. Everybody threw everything all over the place. You might also come from a yelling family. Everybody's yelling at each other. And carrying on. And you might come from a real prissy family that the other why am I fighting her? Why is she fighting me? Then why don't we help each other? And you begin, instead of fighting each other, begin to learn how to communicate. It's more than we need to talk. And the person's reading their paper. Talk about what? I don't know. Well, let's talk. About what? I don't know. Well, let's talk. Well, when you got something to talk about, come talk to me. And so people often don't know how to talk. And so they're frustrated. Nor do they know how to communicate. So if they go on into the second phase, they realize this isn't working, so let's help each other. So they begin helping each other. They begin trying to love each other. They began trying to picture a future together. And oftentimes that future is, I want a child. That could be a very beautiful thing. Or if you're just out there messing around, like I say to the young people, remember I had 4,000 rights. I said, imagine you just sleeping around and then all of a sudden you get stuck with somebody because you just had a baby. Can you imagine getting stuck with them? And I had 5 young ladies in their 20s in my vehicle. They all called out to the same name to the same girl or young woman in that vehicle. Can you imagine marrying him or being with him the rest of your life? And I said, you're playing Russian roulette. So back to stage 2. You have a baby. And boy, you can invest in that baby, and you should. The thing that we've lost perspective of nowadays that I look at for some, not all, is that when a baby comes along, when a child comes along, what happened in past generations? It no the person leaving you, or you leaving them, thinking you're so right. Now, I'm 67 years old, so I've lived long enough to see people who have abandoned each other, and many times together. I said, seems to me like you're a mighty nice looking couple, which they were. I mean, that's Mrs. Gaga and Mr. Macho, Mr. Businessman. So I said, well, what's up with that? I said, this is the second marriage. And we're afraid. I said, oh. I said, let me describe you. You put your hand up on the stove, you got burnt, you said, never again. So you, like most people, have your own ways of communicating. And it hasn't worked. Problem is, we go back to our own defense mechanisms, and when we go back to our own defense mechanisms and they're not working, each other and not blaming each other and working through. Now, so let me give you a few cues. When you argue, never call each other names. When you argue, never do it in public. When you argue, never share the other person's what they've done or said to another person who can bring it up to them, because a male will shut you off quicker than anything if you betray him. And a male knows that if he says another word, he'll take your head off. So what does a male do? He just shuts up, clams up, and doesn't say anything and may not speak to you for months. Not a good way to work or live, but I'm just describing the reality of relationships. It feels right, because too often we're so messed up. We keep doing things wrong because it feels right. That's just the way I am. Well, just the way you are, knucklehead. Ain't working, is it? Mrs. Knucklehead, it ain't working, is it? So, time to grow up and mature up. Oh, mercy. Second thing is on communications. I know how to communicate. I love you, then they respond, I love you. Have you communicated? Not really. And so, what do you mean? Okay, let's try that again. Yeah, I love you. What do you mean you love me? Now, have you really communicated? No. So, 10, 15 minutes and something was said and the person says, I'm not talking about that. And the woman says, well, I'm talking about this. And you two are arguing about two separate things, wondering how stupid each other sounds because you're not even talking about the same thing. So, communications. And just be loving and be supportive. You go out and smile for others, smile for each other. You go out and say what a nice day it is, we'll learn how to talk to each other. And a lot of communications is talking about whatever, about the kids, about whatever's going on. Women are a whole lot better than men, but try to say something and share something. Well, the last stage then. And most of the time I never bring the Lord in at this point because of Uber. And I simply say you come to the last stage of your life. And they say, what is that? You finally are going to do what you endeavor not to do. And that is leave each other. Well, why? Why would you leave each other? I says, because we eventually get old and we die. I said, so at the end of life, what are you going to think? I loved her. I loved him. And you're going to reflect on life and you're going to say, you know, we struggled, we provided for each other, we provided for our kids, we did the best we could for our grandkids. We were there, and boy, so-and-so, when our family went to the hospital, we thought it was the end, or perhaps it was for one of the children, and life's heartache just breaks you. Now you're at the end of your life, and now another loved one is leaving, and you think, you know, I'm going to survive this, perhaps with a broken heart.